All right, hello. Welcome back to the stream. Hello, Rediska, Coding with Sebastian, and Light. Welcome, welcome. Good to see you. So yeah, as you can tell by the title of the stream, we are going to be making a new gun for Gunforged. So that will be the focus of the stream today. If you're unfamiliar with Gunforged, it is a 2D roguelite shooter where you create powerful weapons and collect passive abilities to create the perfect build. So this is what the game looks like. And the game will also be available in demo for Steam Next Fest. So if you're interested in trying out the demo, make sure to wishlist and also subscribe to the channel, and you'll be notified when that is available. Next Fest is on June 19th. So yeah, that'll be fun. Can't wait for y'all to try it. So yeah, in this game, you basically fight waves of monsters. You kill as many monsters as you can during the wave timer, and then you get to choose a passive at the end of every wave. And so I'm going to take this one that clears nearby bullets on dash. So I'm going to grab that one, and then I'm presented with a weapon upgrade. And here I can get stat increases, but also I can get affixes, which change how the gun behaves. So you can see this one, it adds poison stacks by default, but then it also adds oil stacks if I were to choose this part that's coming in. I also have the option to reforge a couple of times here, so I just reforged. That gave me a new part, which actually is better in some ways, but I'm going to reforge again and see what I get. Cool, yeah, so now I've got this moss magazine, which adds poison and oil, so I'm going to go ahead and take that for my gun. And now my shotgun is shooting moss bullets that will also apply those status effects. So that's the game. You'll create your build by selecting passives and choosing weapon parts. And then there are a bunch of other events and stuff. So it's basically a blend of Vampire Survivors and Brotato, but it's a little bit more active than those games. It's not like a passive just move around while all of your abilities go. You do have to manage your own dashes and your own shooting. So yeah, that's the game. And then today we're going to be adding a new weapon. So yeah, it'll be fun. All right, so let's get into it. So let me show you. So here's the gun that I have built so far. I just did the art before the stream because it took me a little bit to figure out. But so this is the lightning gun. It's nothing spectacular, but all of the guns in Gunforged are built out of 3 parts. So when I design a gun, I separate the barrel and the magazine and the receiver. And any of these gun parts can be on any other gun. So your gun ends up being like a jumbled mess of parts from different guns. But I design all the parts thematically at the same time. So this is the lightning gun. And what are we going to do? I've already exported these and set up the gun assets. So the way that guns are set up is if I go to resources gun, you can see that I have all of these custom resources in here, and they correspond to all of the gun parts. So we've got the banana parts, the bone parts, and so on and so forth. So I've actually already created the lightning parts here, but I'm actually going to show you how I do that. So I've created a generate gun template scene here. And what I can do is I can run this scene, and if I type in lightning, so this is the ID or the name of the gun, I can click create and quit. And what that does is that creates these resources for me, but it also creates the scenes that are necessary. So now you can see in my game object folder, I've got the gun directory, and then all of these places all of these folders are their own guns. So we've got banana, bone, crystal, so on and so forth. Here's lightning, which was created by that script. And we've got our lightning barrel, lightning magazine, and lightning receiver. These scenes don't contain any data. They are just for the positioning of the visuals. All of the data is contained within the resource. So now it's been a while since I created a gun. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can remember how to do this. What I'll usually do is I'll just pull up the shotgun scenes and I'll just check. So basically the way that this works is this is the receiver scene. And I've got a couple of nodes here that represent various positions. So the front position is where the barrel connects. The magazine connect position is where the magazine connects. And these hand left and hand right positions, these are where the player's hands get placed on the receiver. So, in the lightning receiver, I just need to throw that art in here now. So let's search for lightning. And let's put in that receiver here. So there's our receiver. I need to modify the offsets. And it looks like roughly the origin of the scene needs to be going through the center of the stock of the receiver. So I'm going to do that on the lightning receiver here. So I'm just gonna drag this around and just kind of roughly align it like so. This may look a little bit awkward on the character, but that's fine. So now I need to modify the hand left position. So we'll probably put the hand right there. And again, I'm just going to kind of look where these are supposed to be placed. Okay. So the hand left position probably wants to be like right there. And then the hand right position, probably somewhere like there, or maybe even more forward. Yeah. The magazine connect position needs to be, well, we're going to have to check that position in a little bit, but for now it's good. And then front position, we'll just put it right there. All right, so we've got all of our positions aligned. So let's do the magazine next. And it's going to be the kind of the same deal. Drop the magazine in. Center it, roughly speaking. And we don't need to modify any of the other positions. So the kind of bad thing about how this is set up is that all of the gun parts inherit from the same scene. And so, like the magazine, all of these nodes are not necessary. So it's a little bit unideal, but not worth the hassle at the moment to try to fix that. So now what I can do is I can go to my lightning receiver and I'm just going to instantiate underneath this the lightning magazine and see if that's roughly what I expect it to be. And it looks like it's not. So let's go over to here. I need a gap of 2 right there. So I think what I can do is just move this over. Yeah. Okay, so that's good. And then same for the barrel. So I'm going to remove this here. Oh, I should also rename this lightning receiver. Lightning magazine. And then also lightning barrel here. Sweet. So where's the barrel? It's right here. Let's drag that on over. And just move this up. I think this is how it's supposed to be. Let's see. Yeah. So I'll need to modify the front position as well. So on the barrel scene, the front position represents where the bullet needs to come from. So this is fine, and then I just need to take this front position and move it there. All right, and then I'll go back to my lightning receiver and see what happens if I instantiate that lightning barrel underneath that. And we'll see, does that look the way that I expect it to look? And the answer appears to be yes. So everything has been set up correctly. So now we can test it. I think everything's in place pretty much. So what I can do is I can go to my code here. I'm going to close all these. If I go ahead and open up the player gun manager, scroll all the way down. I can just change this here, this ID, to lightning, like so. And now if I play the game, I should have the lightning weapon set up in a sort of basic manner here. Oh, interesting. Okay, so yeah, so here's my lightning. I think what's obvious here is that the lightning gun should probably be like, should probably be glowing to some extent. Maybe? But I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that pretty easily, so let's just try it. So I have this unshaded material. I don't think this is going to work, but let's see. The reason is because all these gun parts are children of a canvas group so that I can get the outline. Okay, you can see that it's actually lighter. Interesting. Interesting, interesting. I think I may have just discovered something. So I changed that. I don't know if you can see that very well. So I changed it to unshaded. It looks like the lighting may be applying twice to things that are canvas items. So you'll notice how the gun on my back and the barrel and the receiver for this lightning, they're both darker than the lightning receiver. Which implies that the lighting, the darkening is actually being applied twice, which isn't good. Interesting. Okay, I may have just discovered something. So maybe we'll address that first. Yeah, that's not good. So now, okay, we're gonna go on a minor detour here. Very minor detour. Firstly, I'm gonna remove this unshaded material. I'm gonna go to my assembled gun. Here's the parts route here. We've got this shader material, which is the outline canvas. I'm kind of tempted to say render mode unshaded. Let's see if that works. So it's not going to apply any lighting to the canvas material. Look at that. So everything has been lightened up significantly. That actually looks much better. And so now you'll notice that the same problem is happening with the enemies. Do you see how I don't know if you can see that very well on the stream, but the enemy is much darker than the gun because of the same issue. So anywhere where I'm using a canvas group, essentially, I just need to add that render mode unshaded. Now, let's see, canvas group component or visuals. Hit flash group component, I think it is. Yeah, so this is the culprit here. And let's go ahead and look at this shader material. Hit flash, it's a canvas group. Wait, how is this even working? Oh, okay, never mind. This is not applying an outline shader. So the difference with the assembled gun is that this canvas group is applying an outline shader, whereas this is just applying like a hit flash shader. So if I do render mode unshaded here, that ought to fix it. So now let's see. Hello, Quite Man. Been learning coding fundamentals with GDQuest and other stuff and using the Godot mobile editor. Nice. Yeah, how are you liking GDQuest stuff? I've heard that they're really good instructors, really good tutors. Also interesting, how is the Godot mobile editor? Are you having many problems with it? I haven't used that either, so. All right, look at that. So the enemies have been lightened up significantly. They look a lot better. So I'm actually glad that I stumbled across that issue. Everything's looking great now. Wow. Sweet. And the hit flash looks much better too. So prior to me doing that unshaded, the hit flash was looking kind of weird in terms of not quite being white. It would be like darkened a little bit. But now with that render mode unshaded, I think it's fixed. So I'm just gonna play around a little bit and see how it looks. Might also do some investigation to see where else I'm using the canvas group. But let's see how this looks. Oh, that looks so much more vibrant. Nice. Also, so here's a new elite enemies that I was working on for the past couple days. So these elite enemies will have a purple particle like this. And for now, they'll just send out these orbs that periodically send damaging bursts. So yeah, elite enemies are just a little bit of variety. when you kill an elite enemy, they are guaranteed to drop a health globe and a bunch of gold. So it's just a little bit of spicing up the enemies in the run. They have like 15 times the health of a normal enemy. And they also, for now, they just have that one orb attack. But in the future, there's going to be a whole range of elite enemy attacks that can happen, you know, like lightning strikes or whatever else. But how is this even working? Yeah, exactly, Tommy. Welcome to the stream. Mobile experience is pretty good. Oh wait, no, your experience with GD Quest is pretty good. Yeah, so regarding that, you may just want to check if the tutorial is for Godot 3 and you're using Godot 4. There will be differences in things not working. So you'll just want to make sure that you're either using the same version of Godot as the tutorial, or you'll have to figure out how to translate it to the Godot 4 version. Signal, it sounds like that's what's happening in your case because signal connection changed. Not dramatically, but pretty significantly from Godot 3 to Godot 4. So if that's not what's working, if you're copying it line for line, then I would bet that's the issue. The mobile editor is really buggy. Yeah, that's unfortunate. I'm curious, why are you using the mobile editor? Is it just because that's the device that you have? There's also a web version of the editor, though. I guess if all you have is a mobile device, that wouldn't actually be better. Your question, your question didn't show up in the YouTube chat. Do you want to try it? If you are including a link in your message, I think YouTube may be removing it. But if you want to try sending your message again, maybe worded slightly differently. I don't think I deleted anything. So I may have misclicked though. Maybe I accidentally deleted it. So if you want to, just please send the question again. Whatever went wrong was not intentional. Gotcha. Interesting. Well, you can always go to the Godot subreddit and ask there. That's generally pretty helpful. All right, so this is working. Okay, so we can go back to working on the lightning receiver. It is just a brief detour to fix that issue that came up. Or that, yeah. Dang, the game looks so much more vibrant now. I can't believe I never noticed that before. Yeah, this looks much better. The enemies actually turn white when you hit them, which was like... Okay, sweet. Now I might want to tweak that hit shader because... Anyway, I'll do that later. I think I designed that hit shader using the old visual rendering that was in place, but... Alright, I'm going to commit this before I go and actually start developing the lightning gun. Because so basically what happens when I add a new gun to the system is it will check the file system to see, do I have a lightning bullet? No. Then I'll fall back to the standard bullet. Do I have a lightning muzzle flash? If no, then fall back to the standard muzzle flash. So I still have to develop all those things and tweak the stats for it and add an affix for it, which I think I want to do a shock status, which I don't know if I have one yet, so I might have to devise that. Okay, add a lightning gun and tweak visual elements. Well, maybe I'll just do this. Hold on a second. I'm going to do these as separate commits just because I think it's just a little bit better practice. So we'll stage those, add lightning gun, commit and push. And then for this one, tweak canvas group shaders. All right. So back to the lightning gun. So I don't know, do I have a shock status? Oh, I do have a shock status. What does this do? Shock Interesting. So I built this shock status, but I never used it. Let me just see if I can discern what's happening here. I'm just going to change that signal connection right there. All right, 25th. Let's see. Just want to ask if you ever considered GD extension. Came from a Ruby background, wanted to do binding, and has been seeing both tutorials and docs on it. C#, enough. It depends on what you're comfortable with. I mean, I think I don't have much experience with GD extension. I certainly haven't developed with it myself. I did try to download like the ECMAScript extension where you could use JavaScript with with Godot. And it was pretty neat, but kind of iffy. I think that it depends on what your comfort level is. Like if you are really, really proficient with Ruby, then maybe using GD extension is a good idea. But if it's pretty easy for you to pick up a new language, C# isn't that difficult either. Then I would recommend going that route because it's already supported by the engine by default. Basically, it's officially supported. So you're not going to run into the issues that you might run into with GD extension. And so yeah, I think it's just a matter of what you're comfortable with. I certainly have had almost no problems with C#. For Godot 3, Godot 4 is a different story, but the C# issues are rapidly being fixed, so. Gotcha, Quiet Man, yeah. Yeah, Godot, it's a good thing Godot is lightweight so you can use it. Hello, Sag Leaf. How are you doing? Is the Godot particle system as good as Unity's particle system? I'm tempted to say no. But I don't have a lot of experience with Unity. C# has barely any tutorials for Godot. That's true, but the C# API is mostly the same as the GDScript API, so it's really just like minor syntactic differences. So most tutorials are pretty translatable over. All right, so it looks like the shock status will spawn a zap around the target. Let's see, shock. Okay. Get maximum stacks. So it looks like the shock status has a maximum stack of 1. It has a maximum stack of 1. So that is pretty self-explanatory. But every time it gets applied, it resets the current ticks to 0. And it does 4 total ticks, 2 ticks per second. So that means that after 2 seconds, the status will go away, but it can be continually reapplied. So yeah, I think this is pretty straightforward. So what we need to do is essentially just make a shock affix. So let's take a look at the poison affix here. Let me just see this. Hold on real quick. What is this actually doing? So set damage, gun stats. Okay, so essentially what this zap is doing, so a zap will be called down like Zeus himself, and the zap, when it's created, it will do 5% of the damage of the weakest gun. So that's essentially what we're dealing with. Okay. A little bit convoluted, but that's what we're doing. So let's borrow the poison affix here, and we're going to create a new, let's just duplicate this. Well, let's create a new class. We'll call it shock affix. And then I'm just going to copy all this and paste it. Oops. Paste it here. Shock affix adds a shock stack to enemies, which periodically call down lightning strikes. adds a shock stat to enemies, which periodically calls down lightning strikes. Let's do a lightning strike. So that's our description. On entity collision, so this gun part affix, the way that this works, this is the abstract class of the gun part affix. And what this does is this has a bunch of different hooks here, essentially. So we've got on bullet created, on entity collision, on bullet last entity hit, on player pre-fire. And basically the way that I add new affixes that can be attached to guns is I just override whatever event here that I want to override, and that's where I write all the code that's relevant to that affix. And then there's this affix handler, or affix manager, I guess I should say, yeah. And so this is the thing that actually coordinates all of the affixes in the game on your guns. So you can see here's all the events that I previously mentioned. These are kind of duplicated at the affix manager level. And what this will do is this will call handle affixes, this function, with the affix that's with a function that will then call another function, or it returns a delegate rather. So it's a little bit confusing. But basically, it forwards the event that happens and then supplies a delegate or a function or an action or whatever it's called that will handle that event. So then we go into handle affixes. You can see get delegate here. I guess this is... yeah. So this is like a lambda function that is a delegate. And then in here, handle affixes, what essentially happens is I loop over all of the affixes for the current gun that's being fired and call that function that was passed in. And then that's how the system works. So it's a little bit, like I said, convoluted, but it allows me to pretty easily define granular behavior in these affixes. But in this case, in the shock affix, we're basically just going to borrow what the poison status was. We'll grab the event. If there's no entity, we'll return, and then we'll get the entity's status receiver component, and then we'll apply the status, and this one now has to be the shock status here. It shows shock status dot scene path, which is good, and then entity collision event gun stats. So basically a copy paste job there. So there's a couple of other places where this needs to be added, which I still want to figure out, but so here I need to add that affix to an affix registry. So affix registry, get affix by type, shock affix. The reason I need to do this is because, well, I'll show you in a little bit. So we'll keep that there. And then we also need to put it here. Now, I don't know why this is here. This looks kind of... ridiculous to me. Oh, okay, so this is actually the loot table, which contains the weights for all of the affixes that can be chosen, and then this affix registry is just basically a repository of all of the possible affixes. So that's how they're instantiated here, and that should be good. So why do I need to add that to an affix registry? Well, what I need to do, or why I need to do that, is if I go ahead and open up my lightning receiver here, I can add guaranteed affixes. So if I add an element, and what I can do is just write shock. And so that means that when the lightning receiver is instantiated from this... oops, what just happened? When the lightning receiver is instantiated from this resource, it will automatically add the shock status, which I hope I didn't mess anything up. But yeah, that's basically what that registry is for. Yeah, Godot is really small. I don't know how they did that either. 35 megabytes. C# is a little bit larger, I think, but... Hello, Jack. Love the design. What is the special trait going to do? So it's going to apply the shock status, which the shock status calls down 2 lightning strikes per second for 2 seconds. So, and it's a random designation, so it'll come down and it'll deal damage to nearby enemies. Hello, Cheesum. What's up? Good to see you. Hello, David. What IDE are you using? I'm using Rider, which I was using VS Code. It slowed down a lot. I switched to Rider, bought a license and everything, and now the Microsoft team has just come out with the C# dev kit, which, as far as I can tell, makes VS Code and C# like much snappier. So it's still got a couple bugs in my use case, but once those are fixed, I'll probably be going back to VS Code. So, you're gonna go read Percy Jackson. All right, have fun. Goodness, I remember staying up late on the summer nights reading those kind of books, Harry Potter and whatnot. Back when I was a wee little teenager. Okay. So, yeah, but thanks for tuning in, Quite Man. Enjoy your reading. So, yeah, so we need to assign some stats now. I've given it the shock affix. So let's say lightning magazine. What is our ammo capacity? Let's do maybe 6 bullets layer. Let's give it maybe a range of like 400, something like that. Lightning receiver, bullets per second. Let's do 4 ammo capacity multiplier. Let's make this a little bit interesting. Let's turn down the ammo capacity on the magazine, but then the ammo capacity multiplier to 1.5 here by default. So the lightning receiver will have a pretty large capacity multiplier. Damage. Now I need to figure out what is a good damage here. I'm really tempted to... Well, I kind of don't like that I have all these stats, but if I don't have these stats, then there will be no way of differentiating all the different gun parts. So the stats are kind of just... I'm not doing any specific type of balancing here. I'm kind of just guessing on the numbers, to be honest, and tweaking things as they feel. The thing is, like, these initial numbers don't make a lot of difference. They just add a lot of variety. So if you're being presented with 2 parts, the slight difference in the base stats can actually produce larger differences in the modified stats as the game scales. And so it kind of creates a little bit more interesting choice in that manner, but it's not like they're super impactful. The most impactful thing about the guns in this game is the affixes. So that means that my damage, I'm gonna make the damage relatively low. I think I might do like 5 or something. Lightning receiver, damage 5. So let's see if this actually works. So if I run the game now. Hello, Wopeki. Hope I said your name right. Love your videos. You inspired me to use modular system to code my items and stuff. Thanks a lot. You're welcome. How's it working for you? Are you finding that the modularity is making your development experience better? I'm a writer primarily. I like to think my first game would be a good roguelike with a branching story. Also decided to learn C#. At least follows Ruby like OOP philosophy. Yeah, if you're comfortable with OOP, I don't think you can go wrong with C#. There will obviously be a little bit of a learning curve, but... Alright, so check this out. So when I hit an enemy with this, it calls down lightning strikes. You see that? The lightning strikes are random, and there's 4 of them. And so if they happen to hit nearby enemies or itself... Let's bring you back into the light, sir. So that's essentially how the shock status works. So you can imagine if you get a pretty good fire rate, you can pretty much keep the shock status going. And I think what I might do, I'm going to tweak that shock status a little bit, because what it looks like is happening is it looks like as soon as the shock status is applied, it starts the timer, which means that if you kill the enemy within half a second, you're actually not going to get any lightning strikes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change it so that the shock status calls down a lightning strike immediately as long as the timer is not currently running. So what do? Apply internal. We call the tick timer start. On tick timer timeout, it spawns a zap. So what I'm going to do is I think this is going to be a little bit tricky. I think what I need to do on ready is do this. Spawn a zap here. Timer.wait time equals 1F divided by ticks per second. So this is now going to create 5 zaps instead of 4. So I want to shave off the last one. I think what I can do is I can just do this. Else. And this timer here, this is not, let's see. One shot auto start. Right, so this is a continually looping timer. Okay, so I think this ought to do it. So if I spawn a zap immediately when it starts, and then don't spawn a zap when it reaches the total ticks, that should kind of shift it around. So it'll still be 4 zaps, but one will happen immediately, and there won't be one that happens at the end. Okay, let's see if that works. It's a lot of work, but when you finally make the systems, it's so easy to make new items. And yes, you said it right. Cool. Yeah, that's what I found too. It's like it does become a little bit tedious to compose all of your items. Okay, so that appears to be working. But what is added in tedium is gained in your ability to create complexity without making a spaghetti mess, right? So, I mean, if you look at my, like, rat here, these are all the components, like, in my rat here. I mean, just look at all of these, right? And if I look at the spider centaur, it's the same deal. There's largely a lot. But when I make, like, a boss enemy, an enemy that spawns during a boss phase that needs to be just ever so slightly different, I can easily accomplish that without having to, like, rework my whole inheritance structure, right? So I think it's, you know, there's a lot of repetition. The other benefit or the other disadvantage is that if you have a bunch of enemies and you decide you need a new component, you have to go into each enemy scene and add that new component. So that's a little bit of a detriment as well. But what you can do, kind of, is you can create like mega components too. So you can create a component that is a collection of a bunch of different components. So you could maybe feasibly group a bunch of things together into a single mega component, but I just kind of deal with the repetition and say, you know what, it's fine. What are those orbs? Is some kind of champion enemy spawn? Yeah, so that's the elite enemy system. So there's a 0.5% chance for an enemy to spawn as an elite enemy. And basically what happens is it gains 15 times the health of the normal enemy, and it starts spawning these elite attacks. For now, it's just an orb, and there will be more types of elite attacks. And when you kill the elite enemy, it's guaranteed to drop a health globe and a bunch of gold. So not super impactful. It just adds a little bit of variety to the combat, especially when you're fighting the same enemy multiple times. And so that's what a lot of games do in this genre, is they have like these special kind of enemies. That's probably something that I'm going to do though, like introduce after you like beat the game. So the roguelike progression that I want to do for the game is going to be introducing more and more and more content as you complete things in the game. So when you first start the game, you'll start off having a limited amount of content unlocked. But let's say that you beat the game once. Well, now all of a sudden, now elite enemies can spawn in your game. So that adds a little bit of variety. You know, these 5 weapons are now added to the loot pool, right? These affixes are now added to the loot pool. So I want to make it, because I was playing Halls of Torment, and I really like how they're drip feeding you new items as you play the game, because it keeps you interested. Like, you'll play the game and be like, all right, you know, I've kind of beat the game 3 times already, or I beat this level, but I just got this new item, and so now I want to play again to see how that works, right? And I think that's preferable to the, I don't really like these roguelike games where you can't beat them until you unlock some of the meta progression items, because it just kind of feels bad to know that your first 10 runs are going to be failures, guaranteed. So I'd rather not do that if I don't have to. But I can understand how that would be a compelling a compelling design for some people as well. But anyway, that was a long answer to say, yeah, those are elite enemies. What is better, GDScript or C#? It depends on your personal preference, David. I like to have the OOP design patterns for C#. It helps me architect the code in a little bit of a more structured way. But GDScript is obviously perfectly fine as well, and is actually faster in terms of like being able to build the game. Not faster in terms of like how fast does the game run, but faster in terms of it's much easier to whip something together in GDScript. It's just less verbose, and it's integrated right into the editor and all that good stuff. But it's personal preference. All right, so that is all working. I just want to check one thing too real quick. So yeah, that looks great. So yeah, we've got the lightning strike coming down immediately now, which is super cool. So let's create some specialized bullets and muzzle flash for this. I also want to experiment with adding a particle system to the receiver so it looks like it's has electricity. How I'm gonna do that, I do not know. So firstly, let's design a bullet for this. So the first thing I want to do that. Am I saving the bullets in here? Yeah, I guess what I can do is I can just do this. Let's see. Lightning. Let's create bullet.png. All right, 1 second here. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a bullet. It's going to be very obviously just like a just like a lightning bolt here. So let's do something like this maybe. And I want to animate this as well, but we'll get the shape down first. Oh, I started drawing on the background. That's not ideal. So let me just fix that real quick. So this is kind of, let's see. I think that looks decent. I think maybe I just need to shorten this a little bit. Okay, I think that looks, that might look fine. Does it look fine? Yeah, I think it's fine. So basically what will happen is, what will happen? So I'm just gonna flip this, I think. So I'm gonna take this, copy it, paste it over, and basically just flip it. So it looks like it's kind of going through the air a little bit. Let's do this. Sprite size, or sprite canvas size. Or let's do this actually. Canvas size, let's turn this down to 16. Perfect. View grid settings, 1616, okay. So I'm just doing this so I can align this. These are the frames of the animation. So I just want to make sure these are aligned well. Okay, I think that pretty much does it. So let's save that. Oh, and what I need to do is add probably some white here. All right, cat just puked, but I saved him from doing it on the carpet. Gross. All right, I might have to go clean that up real quick. Let's see. What is better, GD? Oh, I already answered that. Oh, they're going to add a C# editor. Interesting. I did not hear about that. Hello, Benjamin. Yeah, oh no, indeed. Ugh, the dreaded cat puke sound. The stuff of nightmares. Okay, I'm gonna go clean that up, but first I'm gonna neglect that and create a lightning bullet. So how do I do that? So moss bullet. So I think what I basically want to do is copy this. So I want to create a new inherited scene from where? From game object, bullet. I don't think that's right, actually. I think I need to go to... I haven't done this part of the game in a while, so I think I just need to use the bullet component, right? Yeah, this is what I need. So I need the bullet component here. And the bullet component just contains the very basic things. And then I can add a animated sprite, like so. And I can drag in the lightning bullet here. So let's create a new sprite frames. And yeah, default. That's not right. I think I need to use this button. Yeah. So go to assets, gun, lightning, bullet. And the size here, we got 2 horizontal and 1 vertical. Perfect. Select both, add 2 frames. Excellent. And 5 FPS, autoplay. And let's save the scene, I guess. Scenes, game object, bullet. So the interesting thing about this system is that I don't need to explicitly tie this bullet to the lightning gun. What happens is the file system gets read and automatically checks for a scene named gun name bullet. So it knows that it's a lightning, that the ID is lightning, and it will just scan the file system and say, do I have a lightning bullet? If so, yes, use that. So there's my lightning bullet. And how do I get this to play? So that's basically that. I will probably make this go a little bit faster though. Let's see. Because it's lightning after all, it needs to be pretty quick. So if all went well, it should already be working. So let's do it. Bullets are a little bit fast, but... Oh, I need to add a collision shape to it as well. So I'm going to turn down the bullet speed as well. I think lightning... Well... Maybe these need to be bigger too. Might have to play with the size a little bit, but... Maybe we'll turn down the bullet speed a little bit and see how that looks. Okay. And then bullet angle, I'm gonna increase the angle a little bit as well. So it's got a little bit of basically sway. Cool, all right, final thing I'm gonna do before I go and clean up that mess is I need to add a shape to the shape cast. So new circle shape 2D. 6 is probably fine. And this should work. Now, I could make it like super fancy and make the bullet actually zigzag through the game, which would kind of be cool. Do I want to make the bullet zigzag? Probably do, right? Yeah, I probably do want to do that. Why is that not working? So it's not colliding with... Oh, I need to add a collision shape. Okay. So I need to do both, unfortunately, but that's all right. Cool. Shouldn't right lightning be 1 pixel to the left? Let's take a look. Oh yeah, you're right. Good call. Thank you, thank you. Yep, that's right. Do you think you'll add Gunforged to iOS because it could really use some quality games and I want to play games when I'm traveling? Maybe. It's not currently planned. I'm just going to do the desktop platforms initially, but it's possible. I think it will depend on how well the game does, because I would have to buy like a license for notarization and all that stuff. Also, the game is not inherently made with mobile controls in mind, so that would be something else that I have to look into as well. Did I check out the Godot 4.1 beta? I've been looking at the blog posts, but I haven't run the beta yet. Hello, Snake-Hell. Evening. All right, I have a mess that I need to clean up just really quick, so I'm just gonna take a short 2-minute break, and I'll be right back. In the meantime, if you are enjoying the stream, you can wishlist Gunforged on Steam. The link for that is in the description below, and I have a Udemy course that teaches you how to make a game in Godot 4. So if you're interested in that, the link for that is also in the description below. So give me 2 minutes. I'll be right back and we'll continue our development of the lightning gun. All right. Let's continue with this. So I think I do want to make the bullets. Well, probably want to make them bigger, number one. They're kind of tiny. And I also want to make them zigzag through the air. So let's figure out how we want to do that. So I already have a system in place for doing that. If I look at my wander travel definition, this is a node here. And I may actually be able to use this. This might actually be easier than I thought. So I'm going to slap this wander travel definition on here. And what this does is this basically just alters the trajectory of the bullet as it's flying through the air. And so what I can do is I can basically crank up this wander strength, I think. Crank up the rotation delta to something like 720. And the random multiplier can be, I don't know exactly what this means, but I know what the default behavior looks like. So I'm just going to make up a number here. And we're going to see what that looks like. Okay, that's not actually doing anything. So let's look at the rat bullet and see what these values are. Random multiplier, rotation. Okay, so that's actually cranked up a lot. So let's do this. 1000 times 2 and 1. Okay, so that's kind of... Okay, that's not what I wanted exactly. Let's put that back up to 30. So it's kind of there. What happens if I turn this up to 100? So that's for some reason not quite working. So I think I need to turn up this even more. The wander rotation degrees. Wander strength, maybe 2000? I don't know, I just gotta play with these numbers until it works. Yeah, that doesn't look quite like a lightning bolt. That looks more like a, a homing missile. So that's not quite what I'm going for. Let's turn up the random multiplier maybe. That looks a little bit better. Let me do this. I'm going to create a new fast noise light here. Perlin, frequency. Let's try that. I wonder what that's going to give me. Oh, that's not quite what I was going for. So maybe this wander random multiplier. Let me look at how this is actually working. So we've got the noise sample, the noise here. So the noise sample direction, right dot rotated. I see, okay. So this is just grabbing a 2D noise value over time. And multiplying it by this wander random multiplier. So, yeah, I think this is... Let's see what happens. Hello, Drufus. Welcome, welcome. Okay, so that's kind of more lightning-y. It's a little bit uncontrollable, but I think it's actually pretty good now. Probably give it a shorter range. So if I go to my lightning here, give it a little bit of a lesser range here, maybe 250. So it's not, it doesn't look so much like it's flying around, it looks more like it's scattering around. Yeah, I think that looks great. Yeah, okay. Well, that didn't take much effort, did it? Might change that in the future. I think I will up the number of bullets, though, by default in the magazine. And also maybe up the fire rate just a little bit here. Bullets per second, let's do maybe 4.5. Get in an extra bullet every 2 seconds. Perfect. All right. So I think I want to make these bigger too. So let's do that. Are you a dedicated game developer or do you have another job? No, I have a day job. I'm a software engineer. So that takes up the majority of my time. I think I can just probably, let's see. I think I can just make these thicker. Maybe the thicker lightning bolt will help. Yeah, something like that. I don't know. We'll see. Might not look spectacular, but yeah, we'll see how it looks. So we're going to copy this, move it up a little bit, copy, paste, flip it around. Perfect. And then we need to undo all this white here and redo it. All right, I hope that thicker bullet looks a little bit nicer. Let's find out. Oh yeah, I think that looks much better. It's going a little bit fast to see the animation, but for context, there's going to be a lot of cases where the bullet's going to travel slower or differently, and so the animation is going to help in those instances. Nice. All right. Yo, Riley, thank you, thank you. My biggest fan. All right. So I want to also do a muzzle flash here. So I think, let me commit what I have real quick. Also, before I go any further, I want to change this weight to 5, make it a little bit less common. All right, we're getting there. continue work on lightning gun. Okay, so let's do a muzzle flash. So scene, new and inherited scene. I think we go to effects, muzzle flash. Maybe I don't. Let's see. Moss muzzle flash. Okay, yeah, it's not an inherited scene, so I can just create a new one. New scene. Lightning muzzle flash. Add a GPU particles 2D. We'll save it in here. Save. I guess I need an animation player, so let's add an animation player. We'll use this in a little bit. So we're going to use the particles sharp animation. So I have a texture for particles that are like rounded and a texture for particles that are sharp. So what I want to do is put that in there and then grab that particles sharp texture, just like so. And then I can add a process material. Align Y, let's see. Sweet. We don't want any gravity. So this is basically what I want. And we'll make it yellow or something. Spread, let's do something like 20. Explosiveness, 0.9. Lifetime, probably something like 0.2 or 0.25. Turn off the interpolation. And then a much higher velocity. Yeah, that works. Let's see. Color initial ramp. So let's do constant. This first color needs to be yellow. And for some reason, I also need to add this to make it work. So I need a color ramp and an initial color ramp. So that's probably a little bit too fast, but let's do this. Velocity min. Something like that. And then where's our scale? Scale curve. I like to do this always. Ramp up in and then ramp out. Okay. And then let's increase the spread a little bit. And basically what needs to happen is this needs to be one shot. And so I can take the animation player now. Take the animation player now, and then I can create a new animation called default, turn on autoplay, keyframe emitting, turn it on, and then something like after 0.5 seconds, I can add a call method track for this, and then cue free. So these are self-freeing particles. So the animation player will play on ready, it will play the animation, and then free. So again, this will read the file system, the gun will. So I don't need to do any explicit attachment. I should just see that muzzle flash now. Perfect. Well, not perfect. We've still got a lot of work to do, but I'm going to change this lifetime to 0.2 seconds. And then I'm also going to change this max scale. So scale max 2. Let's see how that works. And I might also want to do like a sphere maybe. No, maybe not. All right, let's see how that works. Do you plan on making another course in the future? Yes, eventually. Probably a C# course, but I have to finish Gunforged first. That muzzle flash is cooking. Yes. The particle system is very good. I like it. Okay. So I think it's looking okay. I think maybe it still needs a little bit bigger spread, and it also probably still needs to be just a little bit bigger in terms of scale. And maybe there's too many particles, so I'll turn it down a little bit as well. Maybe this needs to be even wider. Maybe I'm thinking too small. Maybe it needs to be like 90. That might actually be better. Let's take a look at that. Now I think it's too big. So this is particles in a nutshell. You just kind of have to keep playing with it until it looks all right. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Yeah, doesn't look bad. Honestly, I might even turn down the lifetime some more. 0.15. Yeah, that looks great. Awesome. Okay, looking pretty good. Now there is one thing that I want to do. Affix, let's see. I want to see if the bullet track affix works well with this gun. So if I go to my receiver, lightning receiver, and I add bullet track, which is supposed to home in on enemies, I want to see how that works in conjunction with the wandering. Okay, yeah, so they kind of like guide each other. There's still some wandering, but it still does home in on enemies. Sweet. Okay, so that'll work. So I'm not too worried about that. All right, so let's go ahead and commit that. So add lightning muzzle flash. Commit and push. Hello, Cactus King. Do you consider your way of game programming to be ECS inspired? I know that Godot isn't exactly made for ECS, but the way you use components made me want to ask. Yeah, I mean, I'm not really certain what a real ECS system looks like. I mean, it's certainly like, yeah, you have like your components. I think the entity component system, I may be wrong, but like a true entity component system is arranged in such a way that you iterate over all of the specific components sequentially, right? So if you have a movement component, and anyone correct me if I'm wrong, but like if you have a movement component that's attached to 1,000 entities, essentially what you do is you iterate over all of the movement components at once in order, and that's more efficient than going to each individual object that owns the component and then calling the movement component, right? So I think that's what like a true ECS system is. This is more component in the sense of like composition instead of, you know, I don't know, it's a subtle difference. But I think ECS is generally used in a context of like performance and needing to handle like lots of things at scale. Whereas this component system is more of just being able to build things in a modular fashion. You know, it's in the same way that Unity works, right? Like you have your Unity components, you attach like your colliders and your scripts and whatnot. So I don't know if that answers your question. I wouldn't say it was directly inspired by ECS per se, but I'm sure there are similarities. I think I just accidentally moved something. No, I didn't. Okay. Awesome. So I think let's play the game a little bit and see if those lightning parts even come up at all. Well, first I want to put the moss weapon back here. So yeah, don't forget, Gunforged will be available. The demo will be available for Steam Next Fest on June 19th. So mark your calendars and wishlist Gunforged. The link for the store page is in the description, and it'll be fun to see what you all think. I've already set up the Steam forums for feedback, so I'm going to be waiting for all of you to leave your feedback there once you play the game. Can't wait. We got like a week and a day until that moment, so let's take increased movement speed. I just want to see if this weapon even, or this part even comes up at all. It did not, but we'll keep going. So yeah, that lightning gun, I need to add sound effects to it, which I'm not going to do on stream because that's kind of boring. But once I add lightning sound effects to that gun, it will be available in the demo as well. So everything you see being worked on today will be in the demo. All right, let's take a look at the... Oh, we can get the zap, so nice. So we gotta do a lightning build here. Ooh, okay, well this is a banana magazine, but it has a shock status, so we're gonna be shooting shocking bananas. Let's go. Now there's one problem, which is that this gun should be shooting... Oh, maybe... Hold on a second. Okay, never mind. The muzzle flash scene is dependent on what kind of magazine you're using. Which I suppose makes sense. Shocking bananas. I love it. And I've got the zap status too. So it's just lightning on lightning. So we're gonna need a lightning related passive ability too, huh? Maybe I'll look through my board and see if I have any lightning related passive abilities and can add that to the game as well. Let's do this one. Be the Fuse. Worm magazine. Nah, I'm looking for lightning. Come on, give me a lightning thing. Can you give a very brief tip on how you handle enemy types? Sure, do you have a specific question regarding enemy types, or just generally like how to approach supporting multiple enemy types? I guess what I could say is that in general, yeah. So I think, so we've talked about this a little bit on the stream already, but using the composition-based design, so having like a velocity component and a hitbox component, and you know, if the enemy has a gun that it holds, having like a gun holder component, just separating things out into small components, and then what I do is I write the state machines. I don't try to reuse any code for state machines. So there's a temptation a lot of people have, which is that, oh, well, all of my enemies or all of my entities have like path follow behavior. So that means that they should all use the same state machine. That's like a chain of inheritance. But I don't actually do that. I put all the common functionality into components. So I have like a pathfind component, and then I write a unique state machine for each enemy. But what it can do, those enemies, is they can just say, pathfind component, give me a path, and then follow it, right? So there's a lot of boilerplate. There is a little bit of reused code, but I think it's more manageable than trying to make everything share a state machine implementation. So that's number one. And then number two, so if you do that, if you break up all of those concerns where you separate the functionality into modular components and then write a new state machine for each enemy, it becomes much easier to write very specific behavior for an enemy. So if I want to write the charge behavior like what exists with the maggots, that's being done essentially in isolation. There's nothing else that I have to consider. There's no competing or conflicting functionality that I have to modify. I just write, okay, here's my state machine. After X number of seconds, enter the charge state and go forward. So maybe that's a piece of advice too, is that use state machines for very simple enemy designs. There's other AI patterns if you need more complex enemies, but state machines are perfect for this kind of game. And what else? Handle enemy types. That's basically it. I mean, I think, yeah, it's just a matter of making sure that you have the flexibility so that you can create very radically different enemies. You don't want to bind yourself up in like by architecting a solution that's supposed to be used by every enemy. And then all of a sudden you have this one enemy type that has a different pathfinding behavior, and maybe it doesn't take damage or it has invulnerability phases. Like all of that becomes a nightmare if you try to like make everything share everything. I don't know if that helps at all, but hopefully it does. Let's do increased movement speed. So I just sacrificed one of my max health for increased movement speed. Let's go. Will you draw some icons for the abilities? Because I think this type of game, players choose abilities in 0.1 seconds by just looking at the color scheme on the icon. Yeah, the problem is I'd have to draw an icon for every single passive, which is, it's going to be a lot of work. I might have to do that. The alternative thing I could do is like a tagging system where like the abilities are tagged with certain things like blood or shock or health or whatever. And that can make it easier to identify at a glance. But maybe I will have to draw icons. Maybe something that I have to do. Ooh, there's an elite enemy here somewhere. There he is. Oh, I need that health. Gimme. All right. Imaginary friend, let's go. Give me that. All right, we'll play through this run, and then I'll see if I have a shock-related passive ability that I can add. Let's see. I'm trying to learn programming in a fun way. Is C# in Godot actually C#? Because I read somewhere that C# in Unity is actually fairly different to actual C#. Yeah, the way to look at it is that it's C# is more of a scripting language that has access to the Godot engine APIs. It does not necessarily resemble what you'd be writing if you were going to write a fully fledged C# application. You know what I mean? So if you were going to write a desktop application in C#, it would look very different to how you're supposed to do things in Godot. Because again, it's more of like a scripting language. That said, you can still apply a lot of the, or if not all of the features of C# in your Godot game. So you can pull in NuGet packages. You can use like abstract methods and classes and interfaces and all that stuff. But there is indeed, and you can use static classes, like you can use all that stuff. But there is a way that Godot expects you to use C# if you want it to work in the engine. And there's just no way around that, right? Like you're not going to be able to do things like, for instance, open like a native Windows file dialog or something like that. Like that's just not going to be available to you. So there are certain limitations. And there's a certain way that you're supposed to like use it, but all of the OOP stuff that you'd expect and all the language features that you expect are there and ready for you to use, so. Thanks for taking the time. I made an enemy class, but I like your approach better. I'm going to give it a try. Awesome. Let me know how it goes, Bruno. Oh, great. Yeah. How did you like the course? Thanks for taking that. Right now, I'm stuck between picking C# or Python, and I feel like C# best in between to make games and apps. I was thinking of C++, but making a GUI looks tons of work. Yeah. Yeah, I think probably C# is going to be a good middle ground between games and apps, like you said. So, yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with it. You can also make apps in Godot. A lot of people are doing that because Godot has a fairly powerful UI system. So that's something you consider as well. Let's take Blood Brothers. Worm Receiver. I might have to take this. Yeah, I might have to take that. All right, let's go. Haven't seen a shop yet. I have a lot of money, but no shop. Look at the Blood Brothers go. I love the Blood Brothers. They're so cool. All right. Doing a lot better now that I've got... Oof. Ah, oh, dang, I got hit by a pustule. Nice. All right. Increased stamina, robust, combustion. Let's do the increased stamina. Still have not encountered a shop, and I have all this gold, so that's not good. First bullet of a magazine deals 100% extra damage. Let's do that, I guess. Oh my. So almost to the boss here. I just wish a shop would spawn. I need to figure out how to present more opportunities for the player to encounter things and to spend money. I was thinking if I add enough encounters to the game, I might make it so that there's an encounter every single wave. Ah. I shouldn't have been talking. All right, well. Failed that run. Hey, are you using VS Code as your debugger for Godot? I got it to work as an external editor, but not debugging. No, I didn't really have much luck with that either. It works with Rider pretty easily, but sometimes I can't get it to work as a debugger for C# in VS Code. If you're using GDScript, I don't know if GDScript in VS Code works with debugging. It'll work in the editor, but I'm not sure about VS Code. Let's see. Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, you will run into limits depending on what platforms Godot can export to, of course. And also, like, the availability of different, what is it called? Rendering APIs, right? Rediska, is it just me or do the left ribbon actually wave less energy than the middle or right? That's very observant of you. Yes, that is the case, and I need to figure that out. I have no clue why that's happening. So yeah, I need to get in there and debug that for sure. It's not super important. It's like not on my list of to-dos for the demo, but it does bother me as well. All right, let's see. Do we have any passive ideas for shocking abilities? I don't have any ideas for shock abilities. Does anyone have any ideas for a player passive that is related to shock or lightning? I'm going to think about this for a little bit right now. I'm thinking something like if you apply a stack of shock to an enemy, you get like a short burst of movement speed or something like that. That could be fun. Maybe I'll do this. What, cat? How do you do breakpoints? Are you asking how do you actually set them? So the breakpoints, you can just click in the gutter. Shock that spreads to nearby enemies. I do have something like that. Spread status effect. Spread insert status here to nearby enemies. How about thunderstorm? Oh, that's an interesting one. So maybe like a cloud forms and sends down a bunch of them. Or maybe every time you kill 10, like something like, yeah, thunderstorm would be cool. Yeah, so something like, after killing 10 or let's say X enemies, create a thunderstorm. X% damage. I think that would be sweet. Hello, Louise. I have a question about the game mechanic of picking skills. Does the game know the skills the player holds and offer any skills related to them? That's a good question. Not yet. So that is something that's going to be a problem because I do want the player to have some... So the game is going to be random, but I do want the player to be able to have some influence over their build and guide it a little bit. And so one of the ways that the player is going to be able to guide their build is by just having raw opportunities to gather more passives. So there's a well encounter, which will give you a random passive. If you sacrifice a heart at the demon font thing, you'll get a choice of 3 passives. But then I also want to add, like if I do a tagging system, so I say this is a shock ability, this is a bleed ability, you know, the player has a shock weapon. I want to make it so that way it will bias the passive picking or the passive selections you have in favor of similar items that you have in your build. And that way, I want the player to feel like their build that they want to go for is attainable and not purely random, or make it still random, but again, biased or weighted in favor of a certain build direction. There's a bunch of ways I'm going to do that. One way to do it is just to present an encounter that happens in between the wave where the player gets to pick, like, hey, show me more blood passives and no shock passives, right? Or show me more blood guns and less ice guns, right? To like permanently modify the drops that are going to be present in your run. There has to be a detriment, right? It can't just be show me more blood weapons, right? It has to be show me more blood weapons and also I don't get to see any of these type of weapons. Do you know what I mean? So something like that is what I'm thinking of. Yeah, a weighting system, yeah. Berlow, gain stacks when you hit X stack limit, do a thunderclap that stuns. Could have an item or something that would increase the stack limit until the clap that would increase the damage or stun. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Yeah, so weighting system, exactly. So I'm going to write that down. So after killing X enemies, passive, and then unique. And then let's write down the one you suggested, Berlow. So after applying shock X times, release a thunderclap or something that stuns and damages enemies. And then this one can be not necessarily unique, but if you pick up this passive multiple times, maybe it reduces the stack threshold, right? So maybe the first time is, oh, if you apply, once you apply 50 shock statuses, then it does the thunderclap. But maybe every time you collect the passive again, it reduces the threshold by 10, right? So it goes from 50 to 40 to 30 to 20, and so on and so forth. That's a very interesting one. Thank you for the suggestion. Make a lightning gun that goes from each enemy one by one and shocks them if they're all within a certain radius of each other. That's a cool idea. Like a chain lightning affix. So let's do this. It doesn't necessarily have to be a different gun. It can be an affix that modifies a gun, right? So chain lightning affix. And this one can be... So chain lightning increases the number of chains per stack. So affixes, like passives, you can have multiple of the same affix on one gun, unless it's unique. And so in this case, if we did like a chain lightning, we could say, well, it chains to 3 enemies by default, but it adds 3 enemies or something every time you have that affix. So if you've got 2 of that affix on the same gun, then you get 6 chains, right? Let's see, random idea. How about an interaction with a weapon switching? Every shock status tick charges a thunderstorm that discharges after switching weapons. That's an interesting one too. Yeah, I don't want to make it too similar to these ones that we have, but maybe something like this. Release a lightning bolt for every bullet that was fired. Let's do this. When switching guns, release a lightning bolt for every bullet that was fired. And this one would have to be unique. So is this kind of getting at what you were suggesting here? So let's say that your main gun has 10 bullets and you use all of them. As soon as you shoot the next gun, boom, 10 lightning bolts all come down. What board do I use? This is Obsidian MD with the Obsidian Kanban plugin. The community plugin. Have you played Path of Exile? Yes, I've played too much Path of Exile. I love that game. I used to play Necromancer all the time. Actually, I think if I were to show you my Path of Exile account right now, it would be like 10 level 80 plus Necromancers, just all in a row from all the different leagues. Hey, Matthew. Volt Cannon, 3 shots, 90% chance to miss. The 10% it does hit, hits for max damage and the indefinite shock debuff on enemies. Ooh, that's a cool... I like the indefinite shock. The problem is, the slight problem with that is that enemies die pretty quickly in this game. So I'm not sure how much benefit somebody's going to get of an indefinite shock outside of bosses. Let me think about that. Volt Cannon, 3 shots. Yeah, I'm going to have to think about that a little bit. That's a good suggestion, though. I like where you're going with that. I'm just trying to think of how like I can slightly tweak that to make it work. Let me maybe to slightly tweak it, we could say like every time you miss a shot, there's like a... Yeah, I don't know. Something along those lines would be interesting for sure. Shooting a projectile with another causes it to explode. Yeah. Missing shots. Yeah, so I think what it could be is a passive that basically passively rewards you for... Not rewards you, but... Like, if you're just shooting into the void, some of your bullets are going to miss, right? Even if you're trying to shoot an enemy. And so if you somehow harness that and you say, well, any bullet that does miss, maybe it releases a lightning bolt or something. So every time you miss with your gun, lightning bolts come down. Something like that. Just like a modification on the Volt Cannon idea. But I think I'm going to have to think about that one a little bit more, but that is a good suggestion. I'm going to... Yeah, I think I'm going to start working on this one, though. After killing X enemies, create a thunderstorm that deals X% damage. So right here. So let's do this one. Does the game have a cat companion? Not yet. Not yet. How about have a chance to spawn cloud of rain damage like in Terraria? That's a good one. Shock grenade that electrocutes enemies in a circular radius. Yeah, I like that one too. Yeah, maybe like there's a chance to launch a grenade, a shock grenade when you're shooting. I like that. So, chance to launch. Okay. Thank you all for the ideas. I really appreciate that. Now we've got plenty of shock ideas. So let's do this one. So let me just make a note here. I always forget to add sound effects, so I have to add like this little note here for myself to add sound effects before I move it over. All right. So let's do this passive. Firstly, I'm going to lightning receiver. Okay. All right, so what are we doing? Passive definition. Okay, I'm going to copy this one. Let's call this thunderstorm passive definition. Okay. Is unique. Do I want to make this unique? Maybe not. I don't think I want to make this unique, actually. I think what I'll do is I'll just make the threshold reduced. Yeah, that sounds good to me. So we'll get rid of this is unique here. Get title. Thunderstorm. Get description. Oh, there's no... I'm going to have to devise a system for counting the occurrences of a passive as well. But let's do this. Let's do this. Create a thunderstorm dealing 300% DPS of your weakest gun. Well, let's see. DPS. Okay. Create, yeah, that's fine. Okay, so we've got our passive definition, so now we actually need to create the passive. So let's create a new inherited scene. Or wait, I don't think we need to do a new inherited scene. Let's see. Health, wave, regen passive. Yeah, so we can just create a new scene, node. Thunderstorm passive, I think is what it's supposed to be called. Game object. Oh no, is it a component? Passive. Right, thunderstorm passive, save it here. Scripts. Cool. Game. .component.passive. All right, so now what do I need to do? Public override void ready. Game events dot instance dot enemy entity died plus equals on entity died. So let's do this. Private const float, or int rather, threshold. Let's call it kill threshold. We'll say that equals 50. On entity died. And what does this need to be? Entity died. Entity died event. Perfect. So let's do entity died event. Event. Oops, can't use that because it's a keyword. Okay, so on entity died, we are going to say private int current kill count. Current kill count. Well, we have to do this first. If let's store the entity equals event dot entity. If entity dot get first node of type health component dot faction is not equal to faction dot enemy, then we're going to return. So we don't want this to be triggered if it's not an enemy. Oh, does this need to be? Should we tie this to shock? So one option is to make it after killing X enemies with the shock status. I think it needs to be that because otherwise it's just a raw power increase. It has to be designed around a build, I think. So in here, what we need to do, we need to say var status component is equal to entity.get first node of type status receiver component if status receiver component dot has status. I think let's do this. Shock status dot scene path. If it's not equal to true, then we're also going to return here. And then we can say current kill count plus equals. If current kill count is less than or equal to rather kill threshold, then we're going to do something. And we have to set the current kill count equal to 0. Okay, so that's basically the ability here. Yeah, RNG grenade could be cool. Yeah, for sure. Isn't there anything like scriptable objects in Godot? Yes, you can add scripts to custom resources. I could have used resources, but the reason I didn't. So the resources are a little bit cumbersome to work with. So that's why I didn't use them, but you can use them. There was another reason why I didn't use them for some reason. Don't remember. Yeah, I mean, the problem is that I'd have to like load the resource and instantiate or cast it to the proper thing that I'm trying to read. So this is just ends up being easier. But maybe I should switch this to resources. I might do that. Yeah, there was some reason, I think, so I started this in Godot 3, and the C# support with custom resources was like not very good. So I think that's probably the reason why I didn't use it. But in Godot 4, the C# support with custom resources is a lot better. So if I was building the game today from scratch, I probably would use custom resources for that. So there's no reason why you can't do that right now. I don't have any experience with Unity, no. I mean, just a little bit, but I wouldn't say like it's experience that matters. No, I don't have any experience with Unity, Theos. I do know what scriptable objects are, though. Okay, so now we need to spawn a bunch of zaps. So let's go to the zap passive. I'm just going to copy this basically. Zap. I'm just going to copy this little chunk right here. So private void spawn zap. So target position. I want this to be a random direction. So var direction is equal to mathutil.rng.rand direction. And then we'll do times mathutil.rng.randf range. We'll do 0 to 128, let's say. Okay, and then we're gonna actually need to do raycasts in here as well. So let's do this. Private const int number zaps. Let's say 10 zaps by default. And why do I need that? Because private float DPS damage, or let's do this. Private const float DPS damage is equal to 3. So that's 3 times the DPS. And so in order to calculate the damage that each zap should do, I need to grab the weapon. So here, this .get player gun manager. Oh, that's bad. Hold on a second. This zap passive, I can do this. Var stats is equal to gun manager get gun stats at slot, or no, get weakest gun stats dot damage per second, null coalescing to 0, and then I'll just say DPS here. Yeah, a little bit of refactoring doesn't hurt anybody. Much simpler. Okay, so in here, same deal. So this dot, or rather gun manager, get weakest gun stats, damage per second. I'm gonna make sure that I actually did this one correctly too. Oh, look at that, I didn't do it right. Damage per second. Okay, gotta make sure that that's correct. So we're grabbing the damage per second of the weakest gun, and all of the damage that the passives do is based on the weakest gun. Why? Because first of all, if it was based on the strongest gun, it would scale just out of control. And second of all, doing damage based on the weakest gun pressures the player to evenly distribute their damage among both of their guns, right? Because if that wasn't the case, then you could just keep one gun being super weak and just continually upgrade the other gun, and then your second gun is basically useless. So trying to pressure the player into making sure that they're keeping both of their guns up to date, one of the ways I do that is by tying the damage of the passive abilities to the weakest gun rather than the strongest gun. Scriptable objects are amazing for creating items, enemies. Yeah, I've seen that. I've like, just out of curiosity and research, I've looked at videos of like creating inventory systems with scriptable objects and all that. Yeah, I think Godot resources, custom resources, step into that role pretty good. So now we need to figure out. So var DPS percent is equal to DPS damage divided by 10, or divided by the number zaps. Is that right? So if I do 3 divided by 10, that's 0.3. So it'll do 30% damage per zap. Yeah, that's right. Cool. So DPS percent, DPS times DPS percent. Okay. So now we need to set a target position here. So let's do this. Private vector to root zap, or root. wonder if I should create a new scene for this. Or should the thunderstorm be around the player? Should the thunderstorm be around the player or around the enemy that was killed? I think maybe it should be around the player, so maybe we'll just do that. So the target position, so we have our direction. Let's create another constant here. Let's float range equals 128. Okay. So zap.start. Let's do position. So equals this dot get main. And also I want to do this. This dot get main bullets. Okay, this dot get main dot get player. Actually, can I do this? Get player, global position, or I don't know, we'll just do vector 2.0. Okay, so there's our position, and then let's just add on the direction to that. Plus direction. So zap.start position. Start position, end position. I really don't know why. I don't know why I'm using start in this manner. Yeah, this is just dumb. So I'm going to get rid of this start position. Oh, wait. Let's do this. I do need that. Do I need that? No, I don't. Var start position is equal to end position plus vector 2 dot up. Come on, vector 2 dot up, thank you, times 96. So that can just be built right into here. Okay, so now I don't need to do this anymore. But that also means I need to change it everywhere else. I don't know what I was thinking when I added that. That was kind of not good. All right. So zap.start, and then on explosion created, we've got the circle explosion. Set damage, so that's going to work just fine. And so now this needs to happen 10 times. So let's do a timer. One shot wait time. We'll do 0.1 seconds. Private timer. Private int target zaps. Target zaps plus equals the number of zaps. So why am I doing this? You could imagine a situation where this thunderstorm passive can be triggered more than once while it's still going. And so we just need to push up the number of zaps that are happening every time it gets triggered rather than resetting everything. So I'm adding the number of zaps to the target zaps, and then let's do spawn zap. Target zaps minus minus. If target zaps is greater than 0, then we're going to say timer.start. And then in here, we're going to call, well, let's do this. If timer.is stopped, spawn zap. So if the timer's not running, spawn a zap immediately and then start this. Okay, and then we also need to add a timer.timeout plus equals on timer timeout. Now, I could have just connected this directly to spawn zap, but I really just like to have an explicit signal handler function rather than connecting it to like another method. Just it makes more sense to me and is a lot clearer what's going on in the code. All right, so if I did everything correctly, I think it'll work. So I'm also going to add a resource preloader because I need that. And then add zap. Oh, did I? Yes, I think everything's good. So now what I need to do is I'm going to do something. I'm going to change the kill threshold to 2 instead of 50. And then I'm also going to go back to the player gun manager. Well, let's do this first. Before I go and mess up all my code, I'm going to stage this, and then I can do a threshold of 2, player gun manager. We're going to add player gun manager. We're going to add lightning, like so. And then the last thing I need to do is I need to open up my player scene and instantiate the thunderstorm passive. So let's run this. So I should have this. Oh, I don't have it. Why don't I have it? Oh, I didn't add it to the passive reward table or something. Here, I need to add it in here. I need to redo this system too. This is a nightmare. I'm going to need to redo that anyway when I'm working on the meta progression, so I'm just going to deal with it for now. Thunderstorm passive definition. Okay. Cool. Okay, so now let's run it. So why don't I have it? What's going on here? Did I forget something again? Thunderstorm passive definition. What am I missing? What am I missing? What am I missing? What am I missing? Get children, convert all, x.definition. Oh. I did not make this extend player passive. That's the problem. That's the problem. Okay. Now we can go. Hello, Dragon Apple. I'm also using Godot 4 to make my puzzle little game. Wish you the best too. Thank you. Yeah, good luck with your puzzle game. Okay, there's our passive here. Create a thunderstorm dealing 300% DPS. Yeah, Godot 4 is awesome. I like it a lot. Oh, what is happening? Oh, did I do this wrong? Everything I changed when I changed the start. End position. So something's wrong here. Dang it. Something went wrong. Oh, this has to be end position here. Okay. Maybe I should... Okay. Now let's try it. Hopefully that works. It was spawning at 0 because the end position was not initialized. Oh, look at that thunderstorm. How cool is that? So here it goes again. Nice. I like how that looks. I probably am going to increase the range. Let's increase the range a little bit on that. Let's double it. Also, it needs to do a raycast check. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say this dot raycast terrain. And what is our origin? Our origin is the position. Our target is the target position. Okay, so var raycast is equal to this. Target position is equal to raycast dot position, null coalescing to target position. So that's just a way of saying if the raycast comes back with a position, then use that position, otherwise fall back to the target position, and then I can pass that in here. All right, let's check that out. So now if I run up against a wall, for instance, if I run up against a wall and then do this, it shouldn't be spawning outside. Yeah, so you can see that it just kind of bumps up against the wall. That's so cool. I love it. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the number of zaps that happen, though. So let's do 15. Thank you, Chisholm. Are you using already made graphics? Or how did you implement it so quickly? Yeah, so I already had the zap and the shock effect made, and so it's just a matter of pulling those in and using them. Yeah. I'm not making this entirely from scratch. I had started like months ago. I had started working on a shock effect and I just never got around to like building it out. So that's kind of what we're doing in this stream here. How long does it take you to learn C# till you can make a big game like this? It's a good question. I mean, it depends a lot on your aptitude and your experience. If you already have experience in another language, I would say you could probably start making a game like this pretty quickly after just reviewing the C# code and maybe doing a couple of exercises just to get a feel of how it works. But if you already understand programming at a fundamental level, C# is not going to be very difficult for you to pick up. If you're brand new to programming or if you're a new programmer, the problem with learning a language like C# is that it comes with a lot of fundamental things that are helpful to know in the learning process. So like types, right? Something like GDScript doesn't necessarily have types. You can define types if you want, but it also works if you don't want to define types. But C# is all strongly typed or statically typed rather. So that means that you have to get your types right, and there can be confusion between like conversion and boxing and all this stuff. The concept of polymorphism can be a little bit hard to grasp if it's the first time you're being exposed to it. And then you have all of the more abstract concepts like abstract classes, virtual methods, interfaces, and all that kind of stuff. So if you don't know what any of those are, it may take you a while to fully understand those things to the extent that you can use them effectively in a game. Now, do you need to be an expert in C# to make a big game? No, I think you can get away with very basic C# knowledge and make a game like this. It may not end up being as maintainable or as well architected as it could be, but you can certainly get it to work. So in terms of how long it's going to take, I don't know if I can answer that exactly, but once you're able to make something work on screen, you're well on your way to building a bigger, because a big game is just a bunch of small components together, right? The hardest thing about a big game is making it so that you're not writing a bunch of spaghetti code where it becomes impossible to add something to the game because you have to refactor like 50% of the code base, right? That's the most difficult part, but I don't know. Does any of that help? Probably not, but okay, yeah, 15 lightning strikes look a lot better to me. Oh, and it caught him. Nice. Are you making the outlines around the sprites using a shader? I am, yeah. So the gun sprite here, as you can see, the lightning gun that I'm holding, it is using a canvas group and applying an outline shader to it, because here's what the gun looks like in a sprite. See, there's no outline. And the reason for this is because I have a bunch of different parts. So this gun could have a bone barrel on it, right? Well, if each individual part has an outline around it, you're going to have unavoidable overlaps where the outlines are like cutting into the sprite. So I'm doing it with a shader, with a canvas group. So that way I can stuff all the pieces together and then outline them all as one piece. Let's scramble a gun here. Maybe zaps can have variation, bigger and smaller. Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point too. Do you have a shader repo? I don't, but what you can do is there's a website called GodotShaders.com. This website right here. And what I did was I just came here and I looked for outline. And you've got all kinds of outline options here. I think I didn't use this one. This one looks new, but this one looks like a good candidate. So 2D outline inline configured for canvas group. And yeah, that looks great. This actually looks very similar to a shader that I'm using. So use the shaders that other people have made. I'm not writing shaders myself because I don't know how to create nice looking shaders a lot of times. So I just go to Godot shaders. And the interesting thing is that you can actually pretty easily modify Unity shaders as well. There was a point in time where I was looking at Unity shaders, at the Unity shader graph specifically, and trying to use the Godot visual shaders to reproduce it. I had a limited success with that. It did work in some instances, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think the visual shader graph in Godot 4 is a lot better. And so you may be able to have even more success just copying a Unity shader. So that's what I would recommend if you're not like a super shader wizard that can just create things by yourself. Hello, John. Sorry if you mentioned this before, but are you using the default tile map for the world, or is it something custom? Yeah, it's just the default tile map implementation for Godot. Yeah. Okay. So I think that lightning, that is looking great. So I'm going to get rid of this to do. Put this back to 50. I need to do after killing 50 enemies with shock, create a thunderstorm. Yeah, so that's kind of what I need there. What else? I need to undo this here. So remove that thunder thing from the player. This needs to be rolled back. That's okay, so we're going to stage that. That's good, so we'll stage that. I'm just looking through, stage that as well. Stage that, okay. Add thunderstorm passive. All right. So with that, I think that'll be it for the stream today. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for the suggestions, everyone, for working with me to develop new content. It's a lot of fun. If you're interested in Gunforged, you can wishlist it on Steam. The link for that is in the description below. The demo will be available for Next Fest, which is in about a week. So it's on June 19th, so mark your calendars for that. Also, if you want to learn how to build a game in Godot 4, you can check out my Udemy course. The link for that is in the description below as well. And yeah, that's it. I can't wait to get the Gunforged demo into your hands. I'm really looking forward to all of your feedback. Your feedback has been great so far on the streams. It's been very helpful. So thank you all for that, but can't wait to see what you actually think when you get that game in your hands. So thanks again, everyone. I will see you in the next video.